my gosh. 2, 4, 6. There's a lot of puppies in here.
On Friday, April the 28th, 2017, a 6-year-old female and an 8-year-old male red wolf became parents of 6 pups in Museum of Life and Science in Durham, North Carolina. In the dark cave, animal keepers found 3 males and 3 female pups. All 6 were pronounced healthy during their first hands-on vet checkup. In 10 to 14 days, these wolf pups could open their eyes for the first time, and in 3 weeks' time, their journey into the wonderful new world would begin. The arrival of new lives is exciting news to the museum and the guests. On a warm summer afternoon, the crowd would gather up and take a closer look at the naughty and active pups.
First thing in the morning, what we do is we come and we just make sure that we see everyone, and that's our opportunity to try to catch anything that might be abnormal, like we were actually talking about a little bit earlier. Might have a little scratch, might be nothing, but definitely a big part of our daily routine is making sure that everyone is checked up on. So that's first what we do. And then we do prep meatballs, which we did right before, that you guys will see later. And so it's a raw meat that we mix up with some canine chow, which is an exotic canine chow, so it's specifically made for wolves in captivity. Then they also get rats every day as well, not live rats, but frozen thawed rats. And sometimes we do get real fancy and we give them things like deer parts. We have hunters on our staff, so they bring in the stuff that they can't use, like their deer legs. That's really good. That's something that they would eat in the wild. So it's really good that we're able to have that, as well as knuckle bones, because bones are just good for your teeth when you're a wolf. We also go in once a day to scoop. We also have to make sure that they have fresh water. Since we do have puppies out here, they don't have their pools, so we do have bowls out there that we have to clean and refresh every day.
We are pretty hands-off with them, so some of our other animals we train with. There's no training with these guys. We want to make sure they stay as wild as possible, because up until more recently, puppies could potentially be fostered out to the wild, and so we want to make sure they've got all their wild instincts, so we don't want them to be dependent on us or associate us with things, so that way if they go to the wild, we don't want them to interact with people. So we still do all the things that we do with our other animals. These guys still get enrichment just like everybody else, which helps them stay mentally and physically stimulated, helps encourage those natural behaviors. So sometimes we'll bury their meatballs, we'll put it up in trees to make sure they have to get out and look for them. But we have to do things, we have to be more creative with these guys than some of our other species here at the museum.
I always love the reaction from people when I tell them it's the only place in the world where there's a wild population.
So in the captive population, animals are brought together to help maintain the genetic integrity of those 14 original founders. So when puppies are born, they take blood, and all that information that's gathered, DNA and that sort of thing. They're also assigned a stud book number. All that information goes into a computer. And it's a software program that the coordinator of the captive program can take animal 112 and animal 1514, put their numbers in, and then the computer software will decide how related they are. It's mean kinship. And he's looking for a number above a certain threshold, and that will be for him to determine. And then he'll say, okay, well, they're mean kinship, they're not very related. They look at the age of the animal, the health of the animal, are they within that breeding range? Like here before, they had a female that was here for a couple years, and these two just didn't seem to get along. So then last year, that female went somewhere else, and they got a new female. And obviously they got along because they had puppies this year. So those are the sort of things that they look at. They're a predator. Certainly people that live in where I live in the recovery area, it's very rural. There's a lot of deer, and they see these predators as taking something that they want to hunt. And we can all live together. There's plenty of deer. You know, that's part of their rhetoric, is that the wolves are eating all the deer. Well, there's less than 30 wolves on the landscape and 1.7 million acres. How much deer can they eat? They probably have better luck with small rodents, rabbits, raccoons, nutria, mice, that kind of thing.
So in general, I think what we look for in conservation are win-win solutions, right? Solutions that allow for the conservation of animals and their ecosystems, and also allow the human communities that share that habitat, those ecosystems, also to thrive. More recently, there's been an argument that we should conserve biodiversity for the benefit of humanity, and that we shouldn't think about inherent value. And that's a pretty big debate that's unresolved. One of the things I fear in that debate is that if there are species that don't have any inherent value to human societies, we won't bother to conserve them. Don't wait until the end to try risky things. For me, that's the most important lesson.
So right now the Fish and Wildlife is proposing some rule changes for the red wolf. So if you go on the internet and go to, if you just Google U.S. Fish and Wildlife Red Wolf Recovery Program, you'll see a link. And if you so are inclined, they are looking for public input on the program. And so you have to read the proposed rule. It's only 3 pages, very easy to read, and you'll know what information they are interested in hearing from the public. And you can submit it. We'd love to, if you feel so obligated or feel impelled, if you want to do it. We would love for you to do that. We are definitely encouraging people, but to read that rule, because they're not going to take on the link where you click and submit. They just don't want to hear from people, I love red wolves. Right. They really want people to look at what they're looking for. And it's an easy read, trust me. Some of their rules are really, it's like legalese, but this one's very easy to read and very easy to comprehend what they want.
Red wolves, as apex hunters native to North Carolina, were designated an endangered species in 1967, and shortly thereafter, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service initiated efforts to conserve the species. Today, more than 50 red wolves roam their native habitats in eastern North Carolina, and nearly 200 red wolves are maintained in captive breeding facilities throughout the United States. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service are making efforts for red wolf conservation. The Red Wolf Species Survival Plan is the foundation of the recovery program. This program manages populations, trains field personnel on techniques for proper capture and restraint, applies captive research to the field, and reintroduces captive-born red wolves into the wild. This is still a long way ahead for red wolf conservation to go, but it is worth the effort to hear deep in the woods the howl of the spirit of the wild.